Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Season Ticket Holders. I'm your host, Dane Lillingston, and we have a very special and new guest with us today. He has over 30 years of experience in the media. He is the chief presenter at Fox Sports News. You can find him on the sidelines for Fox Cricket during the Big Bash season, on the mic calling NRL matches for Newcastle on Triple M, the host of Test Daily, a Newcastle Knights tragic. We had to drag him back from the tables of Las Vegas just for this show. The man, the myth, the legend, Jimmy Callinan. Jim, welcome to the show, mate. How are you?
Dane, thanks for having me. You're very diplomatic. I think that's a nice way of saying I'm very old.
Not at all, Vidin. Not at all. Young at heart, mate. Young at heart. Now, Jimmy, you've just got back from Vegas, and we will get into that. But firstly, you're a new guest on this show, so I just want you to tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and what got you into the great game of rugby league.
Yeah, clearly I'm not technologically advanced with my fingers trying to fix my framing. But, mate, the great game of rugby league, I guess like most kids who grew up in a country town, you grew up on a staple diet of really summer it was cricket and winter it was rugby league. That was pretty much your two choices, and we dined out on it. Yeah, so I grew up born Scone, raised Muswellbrook. Home team town was the Muswellbrook Rams, so I was a junior there, the famous blue and gold team of Group 21, and it mirrored the same time as Parramatta went on that golden run of the early mid-'80s, so it was a natural fit to become a Para fan. It's been a bit of a drought since, but that was before the Knights came into vogue. And of course, I grew up in that area, reported on them heavily, now call the games for them, as you mentioned, with Triple M. So, yeah, emotionally very invested in the Newcastle Knights these days.
What position did you play back in the day?
Anywhere where I didn't have to tackle. It's just, anywhere in the backs. I was lucky enough to have a little bit of toe. I didn't like the tackling caper much, so I guess I was able to run away from most of them. And, so I was fairly useful thrown out somewhere wide.
Very nice, mate. Very nice. Now, the mic, that's your specialty. Jimmy, obviously, we've just seen the first round of the NRL finish up. Starts in Vegas, ends in Brisbane. Can we start a round of football any better? Now you've done it for the first time in Las Vegas. Can it be done any better?
No, it can't. And that comes from the very top. Peter V'landys and Andrew Abday determined this is now an anchor point to start the season. As we know, it's 3 years into a 5-year deal. That will continue and will continue for some time yet. All the metrics have increased in terms of the numbers of people travelling from both Australia, England, who have now added such a lovely flavour to it all. And they've got the games right too, now in their third year. I think 3 games is the right balance. 2 NRL games starting with the Super League. It just feels right. And I use this line a few times as whoever said there's no place like home has not been to Allegiant Stadium for opening round of the NRL, because it was fantastic.
Mate, best on ground over there. Any war stories? I know there's got to be some dirt. It seems like the players are on their best behaviour. Can you give us a little bit of insight to anything that happened over there?
Yeah, they were, weren't they? Well, as you know, the saying is very clearly what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Look, we were very hard-working journos. We didn't get a chance to go out and really enjoy the Vegas lights. But let's just say a few of the Fox League types who you would think would enjoy themselves in Vegas, certainly when I saw them at the start of the week, looked like they were really enjoying Vegas. And the last night, all the teams, bar the Cowboys, I believe the Cowboys hardly really went out at all, but the other 3 certainly made up for them. There were some pretty sore heads when they were getting on the team bus on that last day before they headed off. A lot of sunglasses. So I take it that Zouk nightclub at Resorts World was very popular that night.
Shout out. I'm sure you would have polled a few votes there, Jimmy, but you are not going to tell us here now, I'm sure. And mate, you got to catch up with Peter V'landys. You touched on it just before. He's speaking up this global round. It's been in the pipeline. It's been spoken about before. It seems to be gathering momentum. Miami, England, Saudi Arabia, Japan. Now, is this a real possibility? He's saying as soon as next year, or is Uncle Pete finally bitten off a little bit more than he can chew?
Well, it's going to be interesting. I mean, you'd never doubt the man with the golden touch. I mean, it was only 3 years ago. We looked at him with blank stares thinking, Vegas, really? And look what that's become in a short time. Global round with London being the first stop. I do wonder whether that's a smart choice, given what's the mystique about going to London for rugby league? I mean, it's played there already. There's the English Super League. There's test matches. there's a real familiarity. Is there anything exotic for Aussie fans to go, okay, let's go literally halfway around the world? And moreover, what's the plus for NRL teams that have to go a 24-hour long haul flight at best? I mean, that's a lot longer than Las Vegas. Um, how do they make that work and fair and equitable for teams that are playing for 2 competition points, but then have to come back and get ready to play for more? I'll be very interested to see what business case they stack up on that front. I think it'll be a bold push given in the background who is going to take on English Super League. They're crying out for the NRL to take it on. So maybe there's some leverage there too for having that. Look, as a fan, so having seen Vegas, I like the idea of maybe more American type places. Miami's been thrown up and a few others. So I think that would create a more must-attend type feel about it than going to London. I'm not going to poo-poo it, but I think clubs would really want to see how it's going to work for them, and what's in it for the fan, really, to want to have to go halfway around the world to watch rugby league in London. I'll be interested to see how that one plays out.
So I think that there's a little bit of a narrative I've seen that it's getting a bit stale maybe with Vegas. I know the crowd only increased by 500 people or something along those lines at Allegiant. I know beers are, upwards of $25. You can't leave the stadium, all that type of thing. I'm sure anyone for the first time would do it, but once we get the final round of teams, next year, the 4th year, you've now had 16 of the 17 NRL teams go, I imagine. The 5-year deal, obviously, but is it sustainable past that, or do you think it is necessary to eventually move on because you do need to go to greener pastures?
Well, it's been scaling up ever since it started. It's only year 3, so look, there'll be probably more business cases made come the end of at least year 4, but certainly in year 5. Remembering there's now going to be direct flights, that'll be a big lure. I mean, going via LAX, San Fran, Dallas, it drags it out a bit. So if they have a lot more options where you can fly directly to 13 hours, that's a couple of movies and a couple of ordinary feeds on a big bird and maybe a sleep if you're lucky. That's not. I wouldn't say that's too onerous for Aussies who are used to travelling, on long haul flights. So I'd say that experience side of it is probably going to get better. You're right; it's an expensive place. Yeah, it's an expensive place. So, but it's an experience too. It's the entertainment capital of the world. Rugby league is the excuse. Vegas has all the answers for all your questions. It's got everything for everybody, right? So I can't imagine that fading anytime soon, particularly if you're a first-time visitor or even, returning for the second time.
Yeah, no, good point. I think Japan's a good shout. I think those Jetstar return sales, I think the currency now at one of the lowest points it's ever been. I'd like to see it over there, but it'll be very interesting to see what they do eventually. I just want
Yeah.
to take a quick moment to thank our sponsor, National Freight Management. They specialize in domestic freight from cartons through to pallets nationwide. You can find their information. We'll chuck up their website and their phone number. So thank you very much for all your support. Now, Jimmy, you are a Newcastle man, a very proud Knights man as well. We saw obviously the result. You were there in person. Justin Holbrook, firstly, pulling that little bit of a shock, going with Fletcher Sharpe, naming Dylan Brown in the 7, Sandon Smith at 14. Obviously pays off in the first round win, but is this the duo now and this combination to lead them to the promised land back to the finals?
Look, first 25 minutes is a small sample size. If you're saying, could this be the launch pad to get back into the finals? You've got to remember, this is the team that finished dead last in 2025. You don't see too many wooden spooners go from the outhouse to the penthouse.
I wasn't going to remind you, by the way.
Thank you very much. You don't see a return to the top quite that quickly. But if that first 25 minutes is a sample of what is to come, then yes, Fletcher Sharpe and Dylan Brown look like the dynamic duo. Look, they're not playing like your conventional halves pairing do, and I think that's got to be applauded to Justin Holbrook and his coaching staff. It was never going to be. They were manufacturing a team around their best skill set, and the best skill set is have a crack, have a go. The offloads, the backing up, the dynamic nature of their football, that looked so different to the team that finished with 9 straight defeats last year. Couldn't score a point in 11 first halves of football, averaged less than double digits for both halves throughout the entire year. Had any number of halves pairing changes throughout last season for a lot of reasons, but it just stymied any ability to get consistent attack. That looks to have changed quite rapidly, but the key is to now keep those three men fit. And I took the third of that being Kalyn Ponga, of course. So Fletcher, Sharpe at 6 and Dylan Brown at 7. Looks like it's already been a bit of a masterstroke. But yeah, 25 minutes we got to see before Fletcher had to come off. So let's hope that that's just a minor PCL and we see that back backfiring soon. Sandon Smith, an inspired piece of recruitment as well, seeing how he came on in that first half and was able to steady the ship. That will give Knights fans who have been starved of some sustained success for a while a little bit of heart that they're definitely trending in the right direction.
Yeah, so the beautiful thing then with Smith, you mentioned Sharpe's injury, not expected to be out for very long, but he obviously slots straight in, so that's pretty good. And Dylan Brown, obviously the $13 million man, good early
Yeah.
signs from what you've heard, everything in pre-season. He's obviously now, we've seen him in round one. I know it's extremely early, but he gets the tick of approval for this early showing so far.
Oh, yeah. Look, you can only go on first game offerings. He played his role. I wouldn't say he overplayed it by any stretch. I think it was Kalyn's match. He delivered, the captain. I mean, what a return after not playing since the first week of July. No football, no trial, no time against in a team with Dylan Brown. I think it was only 6 full training sessions. So, look, that wasn't, and that's a guy that comes under a lot of criticism, right? Highly paid as well. But gee, he really did stand up and deliver. I think Dylan's still a bit of a slow burn. They don't attack down his side, which is the right now, as much as they do the left, given that's Bradman Best and co on that left side and Kalyn's favourite side of attack. So it's going to be interesting how Holbrook does use Dylan, given he is such a quite incredible runner of the football as well. But just at the moment, he looks like he's more that holding role, kicking game, all those 1%ers, get those right. Then when they work out a way to unlock him on the other side of the field, well, gee, I think you're going to see a Knights team with plenty of points in them this year.
And you mentioned that man, Kalyn Ponga, back to his best. 2 try assists, a line break, 8 tackle breaks. Looked just lethal every time he touched the ball. If he keeps it up like that, it's going to be a very interesting battle with Reece Walsh for that Queensland #1 jersey. But I want to ask you is, will he be playing for New Zealand at the end of year World Cup?
No, it's the obvious question and one that he wouldn't give an answer to when we asked him that very thing just a few weeks ago. Of course, a few days before the Origin eligibility rules changed, he was asked about it. And he was quite open about New Zealand being how he'd love to do it at some point. Well, then the rules changed and all of a sudden he could. Look, you feel like it's going to happen. He's pulled out of kangaroo tours before. Obviously, there's a very strong family tie there with his father's heritage. He's very close, of course, with his family and is very respectful of all of that as well. Notwithstanding, he hasn't got his, he knows he's born and bred in Australia, but those ties bind. I wouldn't be surprised in a World Cup year with Dylan Brown in his ear, Phoenix Crossland at the club. I mean, that's potentially 3/4 of your spine for New Zealand right there that play at club level week in and week out. Tell you what, it'd be a dangerous proposition come the World Cup if they can keep that experience. And that's not, withstanding the incumbents as well of some of those incredible players, Charles Clockstar and co. But you just get that feeling with the new 6-man bench, Kalyn Ponga. You mentioned Queensland. He'd fit right on that one. I'm sure New Zealand would find a space for him very quickly. But we'd like to know, wouldn't we? One way or the other, which way is he going to go?
I think if you're a Kiwis fan sitting at home, you're licking your lips because he'll be there with Brown all season long forming this combination and they won't need any added motivation. There's obviously always a Willy Woney with the Kangaroo squad, so I would not be surprised. And we have heard those rumblings about his future, I know as well, with the Roosters potentially always lurking somewhere in the background. Yeah. James Tedesco coming towards the end. From what you know and everything in Newcastle, he seems pretty happy if it's showing in his football at the moment. But would you be confident that he will extend his time with the Knights?
You're never quite confident, are you? Because whenever Kalyn Ponga's come even close to coming off contract, there's been talk about his potential future. I mean, even R360, not all that long ago, had to come out and make a statement on social media declaring he was committed to seeing out the final 2 years of this current deal. But as you know, at the end of this year, Dane, he will be allowed to negotiate with other clubs. So this is a team that has to catch fire quick. Kalyn Ponga at 27, 28, has made it very clear He wants his legacy defined around premierships as well as individual success. It's about the team success. Has he got a squad in Newcastle that will get him there in the next few years? They're going to have to prove that in the next 6 months, one would think. Certainly by at least August, because the drums will be beating, other clubs will be circling. And this is a very highly paid player. There's only a select few clubs, I think, that are in the market generally for Caleb. If A, he wants to win a premiership, and B, can they afford him? So Newcastle know that, and they know that they have to get the results and get the performances on the board, I think, to convince him that, yes, indeed, this is the place to stay. In terms of him in Newcastle, he's very settled. I mean, I understand he's now living with his partner. All his extended family are there. But Sydney's only 2 hours down the M1. I know it very, very well because I do it quite often. It ain't that far to go if a team in Sydney, like the Roosters, should get in the ring and really go hard at him. And as you mentioned, James Tedesco, now that's the obvious one, but there could be some other suitors. But yeah, two things have to happen, and one of them is Newcastle have to start performing in order to convince him that is a team that will get him that ultimate success.
You mentioned about the salary cap, and I've heard you speak about it before and how they've had to restructure it. You have a guy like Mitch Barnett, former player, coming on the market. You hear the Broncos offer a 2-year, $1.5 million deal to be, obviously we heard the story, he wants to be released to be closer to home to his family at Tari on the New South Wales North Coast. Was there no surprise that there was no interest from Newcastle to bring him home?
Well, certainly there's some interest from his old teammates. He's very close to the Saifidis. Jacob is still there, of course. Great mates. If memory serves, they'd in each other's wedding parties. Certainly Daniel, I'm sure he was. Either way, he's very close with some of those ex-teammates, and it's a place he knows well. As you said, close to Tari, where he's from and where he has extended family. I'm not completely across the issues surrounding his young one that does require some additional medical assistance. I understand it back here. So where that means he should be to get that best sorted, I don't know. But you'd be crazy for an Origin forward not to entertain the thought of going to Brisbane and the Broncos, who are very much in a wide open premiership window, a resource like no other club, would be able to provide those add-on value adds, if you like, for a player that might need some assistance just purely outside your remuneration, and that might be assistance to flights to family, or all within the cap and all above board, etc. But providing you with everything that you would need for you to play your best footy, and they've opened up a window. No Payne Haas for next year. Mitch Barnett looks like a pretty awesome fit in all of that. To be Newcastle fans, very keen. Kurt Gidley, I know, has tried very hard. Lockie Fitzgibbon recently in the press has returned home from playing in the Super League. They're already getting in the press to sort of push the Knights, who just seem to be a little bit lukewarm on it all. But they've had a salary cap that's been bent out of shape for a while. So they'd be loath to spend overs on a player just at the moment when they're just finally getting it back into shape, if you like. But his mentoring to players like Cody Hopwood, for instance, that's the immeasurable stuff you get from a guy like Mitch Barnett at a team and a club there that it's very important to Newcastle to grow from within, to really build from within, much like that 2001 grand final team, the last time they achieved premiership success. Now, that team was around 75-80% all locally produced. The club, unfortunately, over time moved away from that model and is now very much getting back into that. If you put Mitch Barnett in the middle of that to try and mentor some of those young guys, it'd be money well spent.
I was going to say, he's 31, and I know you can't replace Payne Haas, but so your message to Broncos fans out there would be he could definitely be your man to at least try and fill that gap, right?
Yeah, look, Payne Haas is just a freakish athlete. In fact, grew up not far from the Newcastle region as well. So he was one that got away, another one. But, he's not a like for like, but he's old school, he's tough, he's hard, and that's a Madge Maguire player all over. And again, he's almost the guy that can carry a pack on his back. If they're just having one of those days, Mitch Barnett doesn't have a below 8 out of 10 game in him. It's just always super consistent.
Now, the new coach, obviously, and Justin Holbrook obviously gets his tick. He's 1 from 1. But Adam
Mm.
O'Brien, I was there towards the end of his departure. What's the transition period been like behind the scenes from what you've heard out of Newcastle and how Holbrook's fitted in and the reception that he's got from the community and from the players?
Well, certainly from what I've seen from the outside in, Justin Holbrook he's an ex-player. Not from Newcastle, but certainly lived and breathed it, saw it up close, and was a part of quite an incredible squad of players that included Andrew Johns and Matthew Gidley and those sorts of players. Didn't see a lot of first grade, but was certainly a real club man. But more importantly, he got the community. And that's been something, if there's been a knock on the Knights in Newcastle in the last few years, it's that they always get good fans go to their games, no matter win, lose, or draw, but the connectivity to those fans maybe has been lacking and drifted off. It's been a real piece that Justin's been really keen to do. Like, one of the first things he did was take some of them down a coal mine, like an underground mine. Like, if you want to be part of this community, get a feel for what some of the people in this area do, you know? It's that just one small example of what he's done to try and get the players back into that mindset of this is our town, this is who we represent. And they've done massive amounts of community reconnection from the North Coast to the Hunter Valley to their own region. These are areas that used to service them. Like Denny Badiris, Taree boy, perfect example of some of the talent that's come down. Hunter Valley, where I'm from, so many. That seemingly had a disconnect over the last few years, but that's going to change. And it's from the top down, and Justin Holbrook certainly at the top gets it. So I think on that connection piece, he's been already very strong on. Those are things you don't see the benefits for a little while, but you just feel he gets it, and he's a bit more relaxed. There's a little bit more access, a bit more openness, particularly with the media. Adam had his style and he had his way of doing things. It didn't maybe help him in the end when things weren't going that well, because I don't think he ever really built those relationships, perhaps, both with certain sections of the media, but maybe certain sections of the community as well. And that's no knock on Adam. That's just, the want and the way of wanting to do things and personality traits. Justin's just a much more relaxed guy, and he's already been there as well. Assistant coach at the Roosters, success overseas, Gold Coast Titans. He's been in the hot seat, and I think he's learned how to take the good with the bad, the rough with the smooth, and he'll have to in Newcastle as well.
Yeah, so where does this turn into now as far as obviously Wooden Spoon we've spoken about? Is this a team that, can get back into that top 8 that quickly? Obviously the massive signing of Brown, him bringing all this new energy in with Holbrook, his new philosophy into the game. What's a pass mark, do you think, in his first year? And are you going to lock in your call now, Jimmy? Is this team making the top 8 here in 2026?
Oh, look, top 8 would be an A-plus result. I'm not sure many people would expect them to make the top 8. Generally, you've got to remember that injuries will largely dictate a lot of this. If there's a knock on the Knights pack, they're saying that maybe it's a little bit aged in certain parts, inexperienced in others. So if they get tested depth-wise in the middle of the field, that's going to make it awfully hard to get quality ball and field position for those strike weapons out wide. So I think top 10 would be a genuinely great return after finishing Wooden Spoon. To threaten for a top 8 spot, I think would be considered a really good result. Should they make it, well, that would be a fantastic first season for Justin Holbrook. But I think we just have to give him a little bit of time. I think the top 8, everyone's flying after a first round win. Let's reassess maybe after 6 or 7 weeks into the competition.
You going to give me your tip? Where do you think they'll finish this year?
Oh, I don't have them in the 8. But I could argue a case for them to be right on the fringe of it, knocking on the door. So, 9th, 10th, I think is probably a very realistic finish for a club that wants to return to the finals as quickly as it can. And I'll be more than happy if they do. But I think, you got to be a bit pragmatic about it. So top 10 for me.
Nice. Yeah, I can't see them making the 8 either, mate, but I think they're going to surprise a few people. Now, Jim, we've just
Yeah.
seen round one wrap up. And I can't go past, for me, the shock result, and that is the Broncos. I believe they're only the second team in rugby league history since grand finals in 1954 to be shut out as the reigning premiers, 26-0 to Penrith. Now, we've heard the stories. Obviously, we mentioned the Payne Haas scenario, going to the Rabbitohs, Michael Maguire being on the nose from the playing group. We've heard this come out in the media a lot. We saw it happen at the Rabbitohs a decade ago. Is it fair, do you think, for a coach to be under pressure as the reigning premiership winning coach into a new season when we're hearing these stories, nothing really solid, but where there's smoke, there's fire, right? And we seem to keep hearing these whispers that the players are off a little bit with Michael Maguire. What's your whole take? Is it fair that there's already pressure on Maguire just a year after winning the premiership?
Look, no, I don't. I don't think it's fair, but we saw Kevin Walters go to a grand final and didn't see out the second year of his. So we know how brutal that town and that club can be if they don't get the success the way they want it. I think also, unfortunately for Madge, and I really like Madge. I've got a lot of time for him, and I was super impressed with what he did in his first year. But he just seems to carry this with him wherever he goes. People go, "Oh, you wait, he'll burn them out." You know, it happened at South. Tigers didn't come off. I don't think any coach could have got that Tigers team firing. To be quite honest, let's be realistic. And look what he's done with Origin in the first year of the Brisbane. This is a guy who clearly knows how to go, and of course, success in England as well. I think everyone's got to just catch their breath a little bit. Is there a bit of a grand final hangover? Maybe. They weren't very impressive in the Club World Challenge. They're certainly below their best in that first round, but they weren't exactly firing on all cylinders to start last year. And then they proved to be the comeback kids. So no, I think we've got to give them much more room. But yes, it is a watch when you see a player like Payne Haas say, "I'm out next year." That just opens up all sorts of questions and speculation. Well, only the players in the club can put that to bed by some consistent, strong results in the next couple of weeks. And if they don't, well, you know what happens in our game, Dane.
It's going to be very interesting, mate. If they end up losing a couple on the trot now, I can only imagine the headlines and the NRL 360s of the world and how that's going to impact Michael Maguire heading the next few weeks. I think they only completed about 62%, 38 missed tackles, and about 16 errors, lost the penalty count too. So pretty shocking round result. And you have the likes of Paddy Carrigan saying he's open to going to PNG when they come into the competition. So a few little storylines.
And Penrith weren't that much better, mate. You know, they had almost as many errors, but they managed to ice and execute the chances that they got. That was a difference in the end. That's a pretty up Penrith team too. They're a bit stung, I think, by how their season finished last year. So I can understand why they were up and about. But you're right, Brisbane, it's a constant source of headlines, and don't we love it?
Oh, mate, 14-0 down Penrith in the prelim to get done. I think there was a little bit of extra spice in that one. And Jimmy, just the biggest storyline of the week is the Zac Lomax saga is now finally over. 2-year deal with the Western Force. He came out with a little bit maybe of a pot shot at the NRL about an international game, some of the quotes that he made on his way out. What did you think of just the whole situation, how it all played out, obviously very publicly in the media between the Melbourne Storm and Parramatta Eels? What did you just think of the whole situation? Because to me, it's a blow that we are going to lose a calibre player of Zac Lomax to the NRL.
But yeah, well, as we sit here right now, I've just listened to his press conference in its entirety, having signed with the Western Force and Rugby Australia for 2 years, which, like, realistically was the only landing point for him after the failed R360 model. Let's remember, he was always going to go to rugby, right? That was his first choice. He was going to go to rugby. Then when that broke down, it's like, okay, what else can I do? It was a throw at the stumps to go to the Melbourne Storm. He knew, I would have thought the Eels had him over a barrel, but you try and negotiate as managers and players do for some sort of change, and the Parramatta Eels dug their heels in, and that's where we're left. So would he want his time again? Listening to his press conference, he says, no, I made a decision. I stand by those calls, and I live with it. Deep down, would he like to avoid all the speculation and all the criticism that's come with it? Because let's face it, it looks like a dud move, doesn't it? R360 fell flat before it even got going. And he's the only one that was left swinging in the breeze without a club and now without an option in the NRL unless the Eels got everything that they wanted for. So, look, I'm sure somewhere deep down there's a bit there where he goes, yeah, maybe I just pulled that trigger a little bit early. But he was very, very good about his management. He took it on. He said, it was my calls, and he's off to the Western Force. Look, at the end of 2027, he could be a Wallaby. He's played a World Cup at home. Big stretch here. Big stretch. But
Little bit.
we've seen rugby. We've seen big things happen in rugby. Could he be a World Cup winner and a dual international? I mean, it would be an incredible twist to this tale if that came to pass. But well, first things first, he's got to play a couple of games of rugby to see if he can handle the code and then try and push his claims for the Wallabies. He's got, a season and a bit to do that. But as far as losing a player like Zac, I tend to feel Wayne Bennett summed it up pretty well. Like, we've seen really good players come and go. There's no need to change rules just for one player. We didn't even do it for Sonny Bill when he left. The world didn't cave in. Players have come and gone. We'll see Crichton go next year. Marky Mark will go back for a year or two. I just think there's so much genuine talent coming through. And, the NRL have been rating Australian schoolboy rugby for years. So they've been poaching their talent for a long time. So for them to get one or two back, I don't think harms the NRL one little bit.
I think he'll be a Perth Bear before he'd ever be a Wallaby, mate. I think it's very far off. But just in the future then of this expansion, obviously going to 19 teams, they are going to have 60 new professional rugby league players. So I guess that's coming from that point of view. But how do you sort of see the talent pool and the NRL's ability to fill those spots? Are you pretty confident those players just will be able to come along from your Super Leagues, your Queensland, your New South Wales Cups?
No, not in your key positions. I think teams already at the moment are finding how hard it is to find good halves. You can find players, yes. There's extraordinary athletes in those competitions. That's a lot of talent you've got to find in a hurry for Perth and for PNG to come in. So I think it's thinning out your talent in some key positions. Certainly create some opportunities. And while that's happening, you'll see more and more junior rugby players who only have the options of less than 5 Super Rugby teams now. But you've got an ever-expanding NRL competition that you can get a start in. I think you'll see them to continue to poach from there to fill their ranks, to be honest. But, yeah, I'll be interested to see. I hope it doesn't dilute the competition too much, but I think you'll see the haves and the have-nots maybe a lot clearer, where in the recent years, the competition's largely been pretty tight. That might change a little bit with the expansion of the teams if the better teams can hang on to their better players for longer and keep them fit. I think those bottom teams will find it a lot harder to get better fast.
It is going to be very interesting. Jimmy, thank you so much for your time, mate. We've covered it all with the Knights and the footy. It took us a couple of attempts, but we got there in the end. Good luck with your Newcastle Knights this season.
Yeah, thanks, mate. We're going to need a little bit of it along the way. And hope your Brisbane Broncos fire at some point this season, mate.
Oh, thank you. Little parting dig, all right? Yeah, I can't wait to verse the Knights. Good luck in that one. I'll put a 6-pack on it, Jim. Thank you. Thank you very much, Jimmy, and thank you, everyone, for listening and all your support. Please give us a like, follow, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, all the links on our page. Take care. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.